We're touching base to find out how we rank with Georgia Milestones on this episode of The Inside Scoop. Welcome back to another installment of The Inside Scoop. I'm David Owen. Before the GPS came into existence, travelers depended on literal stones with markings alongside the road to know how much longer they had to go. We've all heard that one, right? Chief Strategy and Accountability Officer John Floresta is here to help us take a quick look at where the students and staff stand academically on the Georgia Milestones. John, thank you so much for coming back in.
David, before we talk about the most important thing about how our kids are doing, did I just hear a dad joke in there someplace? It felt like that might have been where you were going.
I started to say, no, that was the Roman Empire, and I was not there. I had to clarify that. But yes, technically that would be a dad joke.
From a dad, I heard it as a dad, and it's good to be here again. Thanks for the chance to talk about how our kids are doing in all of our schools across Cobb.
Well, and that's just it. You know, Cobb has a stellar reputation, but we don't just assert that. We work toward that and then back it up. And just recently, the Georgia Milestones was I guess you'd call it published or released for all of the school districts. So let's go down to the very basics of it. Standardized tests in general, nobody cares, or very few people care for standardized tests, but they are necessary to know where we stand in our teaching and learning, right? So tell us a little bit about what Georgia Milestones is and what it means to our families.
Yeah, I don't know that anyone, whether you're an educator or a parent or anybody else listening to this podcast, probably cares about standardized tests specifically. I think everybody cares that our kids are doing well.
Sure.
And although there isn't a perfect system to capture that here in the state of Georgia and across the country in every state, there's some version of the Georgia Milestones, which are those standardized tests, as you referenced, that are given to students throughout the course of the year and are published once a year, typically here in Georgia in late July, early August. We did just get our results for those across the district, which means every single school was able to see how their students are doing and how they're doing in relation to their peers, both in the school and in other schools across the county and across the state.
Okay, so is that, the SATs and ACT tests are kind of a one-score thing, but Milestones drills down a little bit, right?
Yeah, really, really good point. The Milestones are really trying to assess those Georgia standards. As parents and just the community at large, it's hard to know how our kids are doing. I know when they get home, maybe after a long day at school, and you ask how they're doing, you get that one-word response, good, or a grunt in the case of a teenager, maybe. And we want to know, obviously, that our kids are doing well, and both as educators and non-educators. The Milestones measure, as you pointed out, standards. In every course, in every subject area across the state of Georgia, we have Georgia standards, which we're responsible to teach as educators, and you receive your milestone scores as a parent if you're trying to decipher how your kid did or how a school did in relation to those standards.
So you're able to actually see the performance in, say, reading or math, or I think we actually have some graphics, don't we, Mike? Okay, so John, we've got this graphic here that shows us that breakdown. Can you talk us through just a little bit of what we're looking at?
Yeah, what you see here is a comparison between all of our Cobb County schools in ELA, that's language arts, science, social studies, and I didn't forget math, but I'll come back to that in a second.
Okay.
In relation to our peer districts, we compare ourselves to what we call the metro, which are those counties that are right around us geographically,
sure,
or are similar to us in size. Data is a funny thing. Most of the time, you would say a school district is a school district, and say, okay, let's take a look and see how Cobb's doing and pick a district someplace else in the state. We want to make sure that the comparisons we're making are of similar districts.
Yeah.
So those districts that you just saw there on the screen, Fulton, Gwinnett, DeKalb, Marietta City, there's about 5 districts that are what we call inside the metro. We could certainly look at other data points, and we would encourage the public to do that if that's of interest to you. But to get as the data that is most comparable for our community.
I was going to ask you, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I know that a lot of people, they talk about this district versus that, but that's not always an apples to apples thing. Like, for example, maybe a Gilmer County high school. I'm not ragging on Gilmer; they're fine school district, but they might have a different level of student body.
Yeah.
Right, a different ratio or what have you, versus Cobb County, and different lifestyles and so forth that impact what the academic success or in some cases maybe lack of success indicates. So trying to compare Cobb with a Gilmer might not really be a fair analysis. How can we overcome that? There are, 100 and some odd districts in Georgia? How do you know who to compare with?
Yeah, great question. So at its highest level, we do what you just saw there on the screen. We take a look at our peers across the metro, and you saw that in all subject areas, Cobb County as a district is doing better than our peer districts. And that's a testament to the teachers. That's a testament to the hard work of our students.
Sure.
We're proud of it. It also doesn't mean that the job's done. It means we have a lot of work to do, and we know that at its highest level.
Always room for improvement.
As you're pointing out, we've got to do more than that. We've got to get down to the school level. Ultimately, we want to get down to the student level so that we can be confident that we are teaching an individual student well and giving them exactly what they need.
And to that point, CTLS actually helps with that, right?
That's right. And this whole conversation around standardized assessment is important because it's important to the community and it's part of the state accountability system. We do believe in getting to as close to the student as possible with data points that we pull out of class so that when your student walks in the door, you see that A on a report card, you have a deeper meaning of what that means. Our teachers have a deeper understanding than standardized testing provides. Not to get all, I guess, nerdy, but we call it formative assessment, which is more touch points for a student, which allows teachers to guide that instruction, not wait till the end of the year and make adjustments, but to adjust instruction as it happens.
So it's kind of like the pop quiz kind of thing.
Yeah, much more, maybe the right analogy, and I think we've talked about this before on the podcast, but it's more like a diagnosis in the doctor's room as opposed to waiting for the autopsy after. Perhaps it's a little bit
morbid,
it's a little bit too late.
Yes.
It might be, but I think it's probably the right one. So it's not to say standardized assessment doesn't matter. It does. You just can't do anything about instruction in the moment. With the approach that we take inside of a Cobb classroom, you can. Long-winded way of saying standardized assessment is important, will be important, and there are opportunities to take a look at a deeper level, past the county level, down to the school level. The state makes a tool available called Like Schools. And that's
Like
Schools. And that is available on the Governor's Office of Student Achievement website. It's available at everybody in the state, for every school in the state. And we will use that tool often, and I would encourage the public to do the same. If they want to look at a school level and say, how is my child's school doing in comparison to another school, maybe here in Cobb, or maybe someplace else in the state, and it measures that similarity score, and I don't think that's exactly what they call it, but that's the effect, comparability, based on a variety of factors, size, economics, demographics, so that you know that the school you're looking at is the most similar comparison in the county, the state, or however you've chosen to break down that data. Here in Cobb, we look at that, and we have looked at that recently for our highest performing schools. We've also looked at that for our lowest performing schools and those in the middle. And it's important for us that we're comparing apples to apples, to use that analogy, so that we're using the right programs and we're providing the right supports for our schools. Kids are not all the same. Kids' needs are not all the same. And what works, quote unquote, in one school might be different than what works in another. It's been important to our superintendent and our board for a long time that we're providing the right resource for the right need. And the only way you can do that is if you're looking at the data in comparison to, again, what the state anyway calls a like school.
And the cookie cutter approach has been shown over and over and over that it just doesn't work. You have to keep your audience in mind, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. So while we're talking today about district data, again, across an entire county, internally, we are having school by school conversations, classroom by classroom conversations, so that the mom and dad who's listening to this or having the misfortune perhaps of watching us on video can know that the educators are actually having conversations and actually doing work and actually adjusting their instruction based on the needs of their kids, not based on data across 100,000 students. Conversations like these today, I think, are helpful for for districts and schools and parents in a community, it's a little bit of a different conversation around the kitchen table. You want to know that exactly how your student is doing, and tools like this make that possible.
Yeah. So this data, these revelations, we'll call them, directly inform how we move forward in the district, in the classroom? Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yeah, good question. You just heard us talk about the role of the teacher and the most important work that we do so that instruction can be adjusted on a student-by-student level. Mm-hmm. Here at the district level, and I think most importantly for our superintendent and board, the milestone results, particularly in comparison to our peers, give an affirmation of how we're doing and where we're going. Are we going in the right direction? If you add up all the budgets and all the people and all the programs and all the work that goes into a school system, are we doing it as well as we can? And I think that the answer to that, looking at the data, and this has been the case here in Cobb for a very long time, mm-hmm. has been yes. And we think that comes out of the hard work of the educators that we referenced earlier. It's also a lot of small decisions added up over time. You really need the stability and longevity to be able to see the result of the hard work put in by our teachers, our assistant principals, our district staff. Mm-hmm. And so when you look at results like we've been talking about today, and maybe what you have up on the screen, you have an opportunity to say, yep, we're going in the general direction. We don't have it perfect. We still have a lot of work to do. But the general direction of where we're going is right. It's working for our students. It's working for our families. And we're proud of one of the most highest achieving school districts in the state of Georgia.
Yeah, and ever since I came on board here umpteen years ago, we have had the privilege, I guess, of being able to claim and outright say that we are, as a district, higher than the Georgia average, higher than the national average. And so when people refer to public schools, always remember Cobb is exceptional. Mm-hmm. Cobb is exceptional.
And if I can, just on that point, we do say that, and it's important to say that because it's important for the taxpayer. Right. Mom, dad, grandparents, businesses that have chosen to make Cobb home, mm-hmm. to know what they're getting for that return on their investment. Value. Absolutely. And we hold ourselves accountable to a high standard. The state of Georgia holds us accountable to a high standard. In large part, the milestones are used to do that. And you don't have to take our word for it. Go look at the data. Here's the data. We're talking about it. And we hope this is a useful conversation for everybody who lives in Cobb County or is considering making Cobb County home.
Well, and this actually serves your title perhaps better than any other podcast I've done with you, and that is, this is accountability and strategy, both combined. And so moving forward, nothing but good things on the horizon. So
we think so. We've got a good board, good superintendent, stable direction, and we're going to keep providing a high-quality product for our parents and students.
Well, John, thank you so much for the insights on Milestones. And if you found that this podcast has been informative for you and your family, please give us a like. Make sure you subscribe. We release a new episode each Wednesday, so check back to see what else you could find out to help your students succeed in the Cobb School District. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Inside Scoop, a podcast produced by the Cobb County School District.